Jack London, Negore the Coward, Part 7. He shook his head. "Nay, there be nothing there," he said. "The way is clear." Again Ivan spoke to Karduk, and Karduk said, "No, strange brother, if thy talk be not straight, and if thy people block the way and fall upon Ivan and his men, that thou shalt die, and at once." "My talk is straight," Negore said. "The way is clear." Still Ivan doubted and ordered two of his Slavonian hunters to go up alone. Two other men he ordered to the side of Negore. They placed their guns against his breast and waited. All waited, and Negore knew, should one arrow fly or one spear be flung, that his death would come upon him. The two Slavonian hunters toiled upward till they grew small and smaller, and when they reached the top and waved their heads, that all was well, they were like black specks against the sky. The guns were lowered from Negore's breast, and Ivan gave the order for his men to go forward. Ivan was silent, lost in thought. For an hour he marched as though puzzled, and then, through Kaduk's mouth, he said to Negore, "How didst thou know the way was clear when thou didst look so briefly upon it?" Negore thought of little birds he had seen perched among the rocks and upon the bushes, and smiled. It was so simple, but he shrugged his shoulders and made no answer, for he was thinking likewise of another passage up the rocks, to which they would soon come, and where the little birds would all be gone. And he was glad that Karduk came from the great folk sea, where there were no trees or bushes, and where men learned watercraft instead of landcraft and woodcraft. 3 hours later, when the sun rode overhead, they came to another passage up the rocks, and Karduk said, "Look with all thine eyes, strange brother, and see if the way be clear, for Ivan is not minded this time to wait while men go up before." Negore looked, and he looked with two men by his side, their guns resting against his breast. He saw that the little birds were all gone, and once he saw the glint of sunlight on a rifle barrel, and he thought of Oona and of her words. "And when the fighting begins, it is for thee, Negore, to crawl secretly away, so that thou be not slain." He felt the two guns pressing on his breast. This was not the way she had planned. There would be no crawling secretly away. He would be the first to die when the fighting began. What he said, and his voice was steady, and he still began to see with dull eyes and to shiver from his sickness. "The way is clear," and they started up, Ivan and his 40 men, from the far lands beyond the sea of Berlin. And there was Karduk, the man from Pastelik, and Negore, with the two guns always upon him. It was a long climb, and they could not go fast, but very fast to Negore they seemed to approach the midway point, where top was no less near than bottom. A gun cracked among the rocks to the right, and Negore heard the war yell of all his tribe, and for an instant saw the rocks and bushes bristle alive with his kinfolk. Then he fell to turn as thunder, by a burst of flame, not through his being, and as he fell he knew the sharp pangs of life as it wrenches at the flesh to be free. But he gripped his life with a miser's clutch and would not let it go. He still breathed the air which beat his lungs with a painful sweetness, and dimly he saw and heard, with passing spells of blindness and deafness, the flashes of sight and sound again, wherein he saw the hunters of Ivan falling to their death, and his own brothers bringing the carnage and filling the air with the tumult of their cries and weapons, and far above the women and children losing the great rocks that leaped like things alive and thundered down. The sun danced above him in the sky, the huge walls reeled and swung, and still he heard and saw dimly, and when the great Ivan fell across his legs, heard there lifeless and crushed by a down-rushing rock, he remembered the blind eyes of old Ginus and was glad. Then the sounds died down, and the rocks no longer thundered past, and he saw his tribespeople creeping close and closer, sparing the wounded as they came, and near to him he heard the scuffle of a mighty Slavonian hunter, loath to die and half uprisen, borne back and down by the whisty spears. Then he saw above him the face of Oona, and felt above him the arms of Oona. And for a moment the sun steadied and stood still, and the great walls were upright and moved not. "Thou art a brave man, Negre," he heard her say in his ear. "Thou art my man, Negre." And in that moment he lived all the life of gladness of which she had told him, and the laughter and the song, and as the sun went out of the sky above him, as in his old age, he knew the memory of her was sweet, and as even the memories dimmed and died in the darkness that fell upon him, he knew in her arms the fulfillment of all the ease and rest she had promised him, and as black night wrapped around him his head upon her breast, he felt a great peace still about him, and he was aware of the hush of many twilights and the mystery of silence.